Uh, so welcome everyone. So for this time, I'm going to go through what I've called ABC to creating your first Specflow Selenium test framework. So I've kind of designed this framework to actually as easy as ABC, right? So what are the steps A, B, C that you need to follow? It's as easy as it is actually. So this is for anyone that hasn't got knowledge of IT and you don't know anything about software testing and you want to move into automation testing. This is a course for you anyway. So it's I've kind of done it as a building block, right? So that it's easy for you to follow. You have 3 steps, right? Step A, step B, step C, right? And within step A and B and C, you have other sub steps that you could follow. So it's easy for you to follow. I'm going to go through the steps that you need to follow. Then after that, the breakdown of each of the ABC steps. So this is myself. My name is Deji Emmanuel. I am a QA manager / architect with over 20 years experience. And yeah, I will skip the rest. I started my career as a developer and then moved into software testing, also Scrum Mastering, and as well as into QA architects right now with different companies. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on my LinkedIn profile in there. So now I said ABC. Yeah. So step A, right, that you have to follow. This applies to mostly every test framework that you want to develop, actually. So you start with the environment setup, right? Where you kind of look into what environment that you want to set up, how do you set up this environment, the IDE that you need to create, how to create those IDEs, what you need to integrate and everything. So yeah, that is what you need to do. And step B is now creating your Specflow project, right? So the same thing applies for other framework also. You might need to create other projects as well. So, but for this one, we are focusing on Specflow Selenium project. So how do you create it actually? So that would be your step B, all right? Then step C is creating your feature, your steps, your page objects, which I have now called FSP, right? So feature, step, and page objects, right? So that is it. So as you can see now, you have step A, B, and C, right? With the A being your environment setup, then B being creating your Specflow or Selenium project, and step C is now having created that project, you need to create your features, you need to create your steps, and you need to create your page objects. So that is what we're going to cover in the course of this particular course. Yeah. So now let's move to step A. Step A. So in step A, like we said, it's going to be creating your environment, right? Creating your environment. First thing that you need to do is to download Visual Studio, right? If you have one Visual Studio downloaded before, we're going to kind of see if that is compatible. For this particular session, would be using Visual Studio 2022, which is the most recent version as of today. So, but if you have other versions, 2019, it's still okay, but you can as well download another one for 2022, which we're going to go through right now. So then step A2 is, yeah, install that Visual Studio that you've downloaded, right? It's quite easy to install, but we're going to go through it anyway. So, and step A3, which most people might forget, this is very, very important step, which is now integrate your Specflow with Visual Studio. Basically, you need this extension for Specflow to work. It is very, very important. Then step 4 this is also very much important, even though people think it's as easy as closing Visual Studio and opening it again. This is very, very important because in some cases you might there will be pop-up at the back of your Visual Studio that you might need to attend to, right? So, which is very, very important. Before you start now, I would ask you to kind of close anything that you have opened on your system, nothing at all, have a blank desktop. This is very, very important, because sometimes when you are integrating Visual Studio with Specflow, there's a pop-up at the back of that. If you have a lot of windows open, you might miss that. So that's why I kind of encourage you to ensure that you close everything, right, that you have, so that you don't miss any pop-up that you've got opened. So let's go to the second steps. So the second step, which I've called step B, is the creation of Selenium Specflow projects, right? For you to do that, you need to create the Specflow project, right? You need to add the page object folder, okay? And you need to add the hook folder, and also you need to add your test data folder. This is what I call the architectural part of the framework, actually. So because this actually forms the most important part of your application, actually. That. Okay, so yeah, so that's in step B, actually. Then step C, which is very, very important part, actually, because this form part of where you would be repeating a lot of this thing, right, as you go along, most especially from step C and step 4. You are on the later part of this part, you have to be repeating them every time. So in step C, you would add your Nugget package. You do this once, okay, and then in step C2, right, you will create feature files, right. And then you have the step C3, which is generating the step definition, and as well creating the page objects. Now, the bottom part is repetitive, right? You will be doing this a lot as you go along. So it's like a cycle, right? So you will create your feature file, create your generate your step definition, create your page object, and go on and on like that until your project is finished. So this is where you're going to spend a lot of time during the creation of your framework anyway. So this is what I've called my ABC step-by-step to creating test framework. This is my own signature, right? And I created this. No one else, you will not see it anywhere else anyway. So this is my own copyrighted version of how to create your Selenium Specflow projects, okay? So now let's move on. A quick introduction, right, to Specflow Selenium automation. So I just want to do a quick introduction. So basically, what is Selenium, right? Selenium WebDriver is an open source. So when you say open source, it means that the code is open for people to read, and the application or that particular tool is free, right? So you can do whatever you want. Even if you want to look into what the code says, you have opportunity to look into that. So, but WebDriver, Selenium WebDriver in essence is a browser native, which means that you can actually use this particular tool to control your user interaction with the browsers, actually. So basically, it means that if you want to do what a user is doing by clicking, entering data, you can do that with Selenium WebDriver. So it allows you to create your script in various programming languages, be it Java, Python, C#, and the likes, actually. So yeah, so you can use it to automate any part of your manual testing that you could do, navigation through the web pages, or you want to click on links, you want to fill any forms, or whatever you want to do in manual testing, you can, yeah. I would say 90% of the time you could use that. You could use Selenium WebDriver to interrogate or do those actions anyway. So WebDriver communicates with your browser directly as if it's an human, actually, right? So basically that's what it does. So now this is just to bring it together now, right? So okay, WebDriver, Selenium WebDriver right now comprises of your language binding, right? So, and then implementation of your individual browser, which controls your actions anyway. So, and yeah, WebDriver is a compat object-oriented API. So basically, it drives your browser effectively, right? Basically doing the actions that you want the users to do, you can actually use that anyway. So it's quite simple, right? I say that's simple with a bit reservation anyway, but if you follow my guideline, it's going to be very, very simple, because I'm going to go through that like a building block, like a Lego, like a child building a Lego. That's what this particular framework session will do for you anyway. It's quite simple. Just follow the building block and you'll be able to build it technically. Yeah. Now, because we are also using Specflow with Selenium, okay? Specflow is also an open source BDD behavior, actually. So yeah, BDD is basically behavioral driven development. So this is not a session to discuss about BDD, but BDD allows you to write your code in a readable language, which is called Gherkin, actually. So technically, it means that anyone that is not technical can read your code, can read what you are doing. So it allows people like business analysts or product owner and also non-technical stakeholder to collaborate on the test framework, actually. So with that, you are able to kind of share your code, and also they'll be able to look at it and say, oh, you've covered this part, you covered this part, what about this part? So then, because they are not actually reading a computer code, they are reading human readable language, which is called Gherkin. At the back of that Gherkin language, you would have to write a code, right? But for the non-technical people, you will only expose the Gherkin to them, which they will be able to read, right? Not the code that is in C# or Java anyway, that you've written at the back of the Gherkin language that you've written. That's how it actually works anyway. So now let's go to step A right now. Step A1. Step A1. So of this particular ABC step by step in creating your first test framework from scratch. So A1 is downloading Visual Studio. Let's go through this step. A1, download Visual Studio. So to download Visual Studio, what you need to do is you need to go to visualstudio.microsoft.com. Right. So that is where you can get the copy from. But because it's so important that you need to have an IDE for you to run C#, right? And the IDE that you're going to run for your programming language C# that we are using is Visual Studio, right? Visual Studio is a tool, and it's called an integrated development environment. Is an IDE. So we're going to use that as a tool for us to be able to execute or to create our test, okay? And you need to download that like in visualstudio.microsoft.com. That's where you can see that. After you've gone there, then you can save that that particular file into your download folder, and you can start installation. So as you can see now, so just go to visualstudio.microsoft.com, right? And select community version. Community version is a free version. It's free for life as long as you are using it for individual purposes, or you are just using for maybe research or something like that, which is okay for this particular time anyway. So it's free perpetually anyway, so you don't need to pay any licenses anyway. So that is good. So just go to Community 2022, right? So if you choose professional, right, that will be free for 30 days. Then after that, it will ask you to pay. So, and the same thing, enterprise. Of course, everything that you can do with Selenium, or for anything, whatever that you needed, you can use community version. So you will not yet get any limitation. So community version is sufficient and is enough for you to be able to, set up Selenium with Specflow anyway. So after you click on that, the download starts. In my own version now, you can see I've got it here. For some of you, you might have to go to download folder to get that anyway. So, but yeah, if that is the case, you have to go to download for that in the second step. So in this particular A2, we will start Visual Studio installation, right? So Visual Studio installation, right? For you to install Visual Studio, prerequisite is that you've got Visual Studio downloaded in the A1 that we done, right? So now for you to install Visual Studio in this A2 part, right? So you've got Visual Studio downloaded, and so when you open that, you would kind of see this particular pop-up message, right, to ask you to continue, right? So before you get started, it's going to do a few things like configuration of your installation, right? So what you just need to do is to click on continue, right? So then it will start installing for you, right? So after a few moments, you will see this particular window, right? So this window is very, very important. You need to know what to check and what not to uncheck. This is very, very important. So when you go to this screen, everything will be unchecked, nothing. So you need to check .NET Desktop Development. That's what you need, .NET Desktop Development. That is very, very important. Leave the rest, you don't need any other thing. The other ones are important for other development framework that you want to do. For Selenium with Specflow, what you need is .NET Desktop Development. Then after that, you need to click on install. But of course, I will ask you to look into here. So in there, you have install while downloading, which I think is fine. In other part, you might want to download, then install. But it's okay if you have reliable Wi-Fi and your internet is not fluctuating. So it's okay. You just make sure that it's on install while downloading, and then you click on install. So like I said, step 1 and step 2. Okay, then after that, you would then see this. If you already have another version of Visual Studio installed, like myself right now, I've got Visual Studio 2019 already installed, you will see it at the bottom, right? Because you can have 2 instances of Visual Studio on your system anyway. So you can have 2022 and 2019. So you just need to know when you are opening that, you need to know the right version to open. Is very, very important. But yeah, so but this one is one that we are installing. You will see something like this, right? Which is saying is starting download operation. Then after that is finished, it goes to starting install operation. So ensure that this is checked so that after installation, it starts. If it doesn't start, then you need to open Visual Studio manually, which is okay. I'm going to also show you how that can be done. So then after that is finished, you're going to see a screen like this that asking you to sign into Visual Studio. It is not necessary, but of course, if you go Visual Studio account or Microsoft account, then of course you can sign in. That's fine. Like I said, community is free, so it's okay. But if you don't have an account, just say not now, maybe later. You get it now. But if you have an account, it's okay. You can sign in and you can continue anyway. So for now, I will just ask you to say not now, maybe later. We'll do that later. Okay. Then after that, you will need to select development settings that you want. Because we are using Visual C#, we are using C# for our code. So you will click on the general and click on Visual C#, right? So once you click on that, and we'll be able to kind of continue, right? And after that, you would, when you click on the C#, it closes, right? And then you have the drop down already selected C#. Then after that, you can select the color theme that you want, right? So it's your choice. If you want the blue one, if you want the blue with extra construct, if you want the dark one. Some people think dark is kind of, yeah, it looks cool. Do like a developer technology and everything, or you want the light. This is free for you to be able to just select any one that you want. So whatever that is. Then after that, click on Visual Studio anyway. Yeah. So then well done. You've done it very well. So, and once you see this message, that means you've really done very well. You are about to start Visual Studio. So, and just at this point, yeah, you just need to be patient. It might take a few minutes. Actually, patience is a virtue here. So depending on how fast your system is, it will take a while. And then once you finish, then you would see something like this, actually. So which shows you that, okay, Visual Studio is already installed for the first time. You're about to kind of continue, right? So what you now need to do is to click on continue without code. So once you click on continue without code, that would be good, will be okay for you anyway. But as you go along, we might need to be saying, okay, click on new project, or you might also want to say, okay, open a project or solution. But for now, we don't have any solution. We don't want to create a new project. So we just want to continue without code anyway. So just click on continue without code, okay? And that is that. So this opens the Visual Studio for you. And that completes our installation of Visual Studio based on that. So the next step also is step A3, actually. Step A3, which is now integration of Specflow extension. Integration of Specflow extension. So, and what do you need to do to that? So this is, we've done A1, A2, and now we are moving to A3. So which is installation of Specflow extension. This is very important, and do not miss this step because a lot of people miss this particular step actually. So if I may put this in bold, red, shouting, it's very important because once you miss this, it can bite you at the later part of your installation. Things might not work and everything. So this is very important that you ensure that you pay attention to this particular step. It's a simple step that most people might miss, and it's a step that you would only do once, right, for Visual Studio installation. That means that once you have Visual Studio installed, you do this step once. You don't need to do this step for every project that you open. And that's why it's easy for people to miss anyway, because once you've done it once, that is it. And you can create as many projects as possible. You don't need to do anything. So, and that is the reason why I have added this step to the environment setup, because it's only one time step, and it's very important. So what you need to do is open your Visual Studio. If you've already closed it, just open it again. So, and yeah, so just click on start, yeah, search for Visual Studio and click on it. So this is the step to open Visual Studio if you want to open it anyway. So start, search for Visual Studio, click on Visual Studio. So that would open Visual Studio. But if you do have more instances of Visual Studio, like if you have more than one, so you need to select the right one. That is important, okay? So now what you need to do is continue without code, okay? Click on continue without code. That should open that for you. So if you have the black background anyway, when you select a black background in the theme, this opens for you anyway. So it's the same thing anyway, whether you have the white, it doesn't make any difference, okay? Then you have this anyway, so which is, okay, yeah. Okay, so the next step now we want to do is to add our Specflow extension to Visual Studio. It's very important, okay? So like I said, you need to do this once for your Visual Studio instance. So that would also means that if you have Visual Studio 19, right, you need to do it for Visual Studio 19, and also you need to do your Visual Studio on 2022. You need to do it for instance of your Visual Studio. So this is very important, and it's important to do this, okay? So what you need to do on your Visual Studio, click on select extension. Yeah. Click on extension, and then click on manage extension, actually. So select the extension, then manage extension. So once you do that, right, it's going to open this screen for you, right? So what you need to do now is on this right-hand side, search for Specflow, right? So because I've already put that in there, so it's Specflow already open, but you might see other things here before you start anyway. But once you get this particular manage extension screen, just type Specflow on the right-hand side, right? And then Specflow for Visual Studio would open. So then click on download, right, to download the extension. Okay, then after that, what you now see is this particular stripe at the bottom, right? It's very, very important to wait until you see this. Once you see that, yeah, it says your changes will be scheduled. The modification will begin when all Microsoft Visual Studio windows are closed. This instruction is very, very important, right? And that means you need to close Visual Studio. All instances, right, of Visual Studio needs to be closed, and then before you restart it again. So it's very, very important, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to close this screen, and then we're going to close Visual Studio, okay? So to close Visual Studio, you can decide to just close it using the star, or you go to File and close, okay? But of course, the fast approach is click on the star and close Visual Studio. And now this step is very, very important because it's minute, right? So once you close Visual Studio, don't open it yet. So once you close Visual Studio, you will see a pop-up, right? If it doesn't open, then something is wrong, okay? So if it doesn't open, ensure that you minimize all the screen. This is important. Minimize all your screens. Ensure that you minimize all your screens. It's very, very important for you to do so. Okay, so but ensure that you see the screen. Once you see this screen, then you would wait for a few minutes actually. So after that, you should see a screen like this, okay, to allow you to modify the Visual Studio extension. Okay, so now what you need to click on is you click on modify. Okay, click on modify. Then you will see the screen, right? That is saying, oh, I am modifying Visual Studio Community 2022. Then once that is done, then the screen appears. Then you can close the screen. So there may be some issues, right, that you may encounter, not now or in future. I'm going to talk about that right now so that you don't fall into pitfall in future. Okay, so now, yeah, this is very, very important now. Take close attention now. So if you do not close Visual Studio and restart again, then your integration might not start. You need to also take close notice of that, okay? If you did not see the dialog box, okay, for the integration, make sure that you minimize all your windows. In the first instance, I would have asked you, I've asked you actually to close all the windows before you start Visual Studio. That's the best practice, so that there's no other window that is at the back of your Visual Studio. But if you do have any other windows, ensure that you minimize them or even close them, okay? That's very, very important, okay? And if you have issue right now, this might be issue that you have, but if things are not working properly, right, in future, you might have some issues. That what happens, like you don't find Selenium templates when you create your Specflow template, or rather when you create a new project. That also is possible, right? So, and you could not also create a new feature file. That is also another issue that you might have, okay? So ensure that you perform this operation, okay? So that you can be able to, yeah, continue later. But if eventually you want to create your template and you find out you are not able to see Specflow, this can be the issue that is happening, okay? When we get to that point, I would re-emphasize that to say, okay, have you done this bit? If you have not done this particular bit, this will not happen. It's very, very important for you to know that. Okay, and also this particular screen might also open as well. Look out for this screen because also it's important as well. So this screen will allow you to kind of set up your Specflow continually or completely. But if this is not opening at this stage, it might open later, or I'll tell you where you can see that anyway. So if you see this screen, so you just need to click on next, okay, and also then next, basically. So and then close, basically. That's all. So that's everything that you need to do. And then open your Visual Studio again, right? Like go to start, search for Visual Studio and open it again. So that's what you need to do. So and once you open it, then go to continue with that code. Okay. All right. So that is the step A of installing Visual Studio. Step A of installing Visual Studio. So which I have covered now. So I'm going to stop here for now. So that we can do this in practical actually. So you're going to see that again. Thank you.